Have you ever sat on a bus late at night and thought, what if I never make it home? What if something decides I don't get to leave? That thought hit Luke hard as he stepped onto the last bus of the evening, the one with flickering overhead lights and that heavy silence only the night could carry. He was tired, 12-hour shift, stale coffee breath, fingers stained with machine grease. All he wanted was to sink into the seat, close his eyes and not think until his stop. But tonight wasn't going to let him. There were only two people on the bus, Luke and a figure sitting all the way in the back, hood up, head down, shadows swallowing their face whole. Luke glanced back once, then again, longer the second time. Something about the stillness didn't sit right. No phone glow, no shifting, no cough or sneeze or breath. Just still. He pulled his jacket tighter and stared out the window, trying to pretend it didn't bother him. But every time the bus creaked or hit a bump, he flinched. The city was thinning now, lights flickering past like ghosts in glass, stores shuttered, windows dark. The bus hummed through it all, as if cutting through a sleeping world. The figure in the back never moved. Luke leaned forward just enough to peek toward the driver. A guy in his 40s maybe, with a grizzled beard and cap pulled low. He looked like he'd been doing this route since the 90s. Luke thought about asking if everything was fine, but what would he even say? Hey, the person in the back's too quiet, too still. He sounded crazy even in his own head. Still, that unease crawled under his skin like ants. The bus took a turn Luke didn't recognize. Not a sharp one, not jarring, just wrong, off route. The streets looked unfamiliar. No stores, no signs, just cracked asphalt and crooked trees that leaned too close to the road. Luke pressed his face to the window, trying to find a landmark. Nothing. Then the bus stopped. No ding from a passenger. No stop requested. The air turned thick, heavy, like someone had vacuumed all the oxygen out. Luke turned. The figure in the back was standing now, still facing down, still hooded. Without a sound, they walked toward the front. Luke's heart kicked up. He shrank into his seat, unsure if he should speak. But the figure didn't even glance at him. They walked off the bus, no words, no hesitation. Just gone, swallowed by the dark outside. Luke leaned toward the window and looked out. There was no one there. He blinked, looked again. Nothing. No footsteps on the pavement. No movement in the shadows. Just an empty road stretching both ways, lit by one sad-looking streetlight flickering like it was gasping for life. Then he turned back toward the front of the bus. The driver's seat was empty, the wheel still, the keys still in the ignition, but no driver. "What the hell?" Luke whispered, rising to his feet. He stepped forward slowly, each footstep echoing too loudly in the silence. The floor creaked under his boots. He reached the driver's seat and looked around. The street outside was still empty. No houses, no signs, just endless black stretching in every direction. He tapped the door release. Nothing. He tapped again. The doors didn't open. The bus didn't hum anymore. It felt dead. He grabbed the driver's seat and shook it, as if the man might be hiding underneath somehow, crouched in some weird prank. "Hey!" he yelled, voice cracking. "Hello?" No answer, no sound. Only the wind, soft, distant, and something else. A slow creaking, like wood bending, from the back of the bus. Luke turned slowly. There was someone sitting in the last row again. Same spot, same hood. He hadn't seen them get back on. They were turned slightly now, as if watching him, face still hidden, not a single motion, not a breath. Luke's legs refused to move. His mind was screaming to run, to do something, but his body froze in place. The figure stood again. This time, it took a step forward, and then another. The lights above it flickered in time with each movement. The closer it came, the colder the air turned. Luke's breath fogged in front of him. He stumbled backward, hands scrambling against the seat backs. "What do you want?" he shouted. The figure stopped, and then it spoke, but not in words, not in any language Luke understood. It was like a sound in his head, a scraping, a howl buried under metal. Images flashed in his mind, of roads that looped forever, of people trapped behind windows, screaming silently, buses driving into black voids. He turned and ran to the doors, slamming his fists against them. "Let me out!" They didn't budge. Behind him, the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, and then silence. Luke turned. No one was there. The bus was empty. He spun, breath coming in short gasps. His reflection stared back at him in the dark glass. But something was wrong with it. It didn't match his movements. It blinked a second too late, smiled when he didn't. And then the lights on the bus went out. For a moment, everything was black. Luke couldn't see the seats, couldn't see the windows, not even his own hands, just pitch dark silence and the sound of his heartbeat thumping like a drum inside his ears. Then, click. One of the overhead lights flickered back to life, Diamond Soy's barely holding on, but enough to see he was still on the bus. Only now the seats weren't empty. Every row had someone sitting in it, all of them completely still, heads slumped, faces pale and blank, eyes open but not blinking. Some were dressed like factory workers. One wore a school uniform. A woman in front had a plastic grocery bag looped around her wrist, filled with wilted lettuce and bruised apples. Luke took a step back and choked on a sob. These people, they weren't breathing. Then the bus jerked forward. It moved on its own. Slow at first, then picking up speed, wheels humming against the broken pavement. Luke ran toward the front, tried again to force the doors open. They didn't even click. The driver's seat was still empty, the wheel turning slightly on its own like something invisible was steering. He turned back to the passengers. None of them moved, but their eyes, those eyes followed him, one by one. Luke's voice cracked. "What is this?" A low sound answered, coming from behind him again. The same hooded figure had returned, now closer, now clearer, still faceless. But the shadows clinging to it twisted and pulsed like smoke underwater. It stepped forward slowly, and this time Luke didn't wait. He pushed past rows of lifeless passengers, ignoring their turning heads and the growing weight in the air. He had to get off this bus. He yanked at every emergency lever he could find, but nothing worked. No windows opened. No alarm sounded. The lights above buzzed louder, flickering like they were shorting out. Then the bus began to change. Outside the windows, the world started slipping, trees bending into impossible shapes, buildings melting like wax, the road twisting upward like a roller coaster. Luke gripped a seat to keep from falling as gravity itself fell off. The people on the bus remained seated, like they were used to this. Like they had done this ride before, and maybe they had. "Where are we going?" Luke shouted at the figure. The figure didn't answer, but something else did. A voice, not loud, not human. It sounded like a whisper through broken speakers, like wind funneled through a throat. "You never leave the last stop." Luke shook his head, stumbling as the bus turned sharply. "This isn't real. This is some dream." He looked back at the figure. It was closer. He picked up a fire extinguisher from under a seat and hurled it at the window next to him. Glass shattered. Cold wind howled in. Without thinking, Luke climbed through it. The wind sliced at his skin. The bus kept moving, but he jumped anyway. He hit the ground hard, dirt, not pavement. Rolled down a shallow hill, scraping his arms and knees. When he finally stopped, the bus was gone. Vanished, like it had been swallowed by the night. Luke sat up, panting. His hands were shaking. Every part of him screamed. He was alone in a clearing. No street, no lights. Just a thick stretch of woods. Tall trees looming like giants. He stumbled toward a faint glimmer in the distance. Maybe a light, maybe a way out. But with every step, the trees seemed to close in. Branches scraped his face. The cold sank deeper into his chest. Then he saw it. A small wooden shack, half collapsed. A rusted street sign bent in the dirt. Route 23, last stop. Inside the shack, a bench and a figure. Not the hooded one, but something worse. It looked like him. Exactly like him. Same clothes, same cut on the chin, same trembling hands. But its eyes were gone, hollow. Its mouth hung open like it had been screaming for years. It slowly looked up at him, and Luke stepped back. No! 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 Behind him, a distant hum, the sound of a bus engine. He turned, headlights. The bus was coming back down the road, even though there was no road. And inside, he could already see the rows of blank faces waiting for him. Luke ran, but the trees didn't let him go. The more he moved, the more the forest folded in on itself. The air thickened like syrup. The hum of the engine grew louder until it wasn't just sound. It was pressure inside his skull, behind his eyes. He fell to his knees. Then it stopped. Silence. When he looked up, the bus was parked in front of him, doors open, and the hooded figure waiting. Behind it, the passengers now looked at him not with blank stares but with sadness, as if they knew, as if they remembered trying to run too. Luke backed away. Please, I don't belong here. The hooded figure raised one hand and pointed at him. You got on, Hunnit whispered. You never should have gotten on. The forest vanished. The road was back,